We've cooked up a fun project for kids that'll get them stirred up. And also I want to show you a place for quiet and contemplation. It all starts after this. Hi, I'm Alan Smith. Welcome to the show. Boy, have I got some fun projects for you today. And we're also going to visit a garden that I'm designing in a woodland setting. And it surrounds a facility called the House of Prayer. I think you'll be inspired by this place and its mission. We'll also travel to California, to that beautiful city by the bay, where we'll catch up with Gary Hoffman at the San Francisco Botanical Garden. Gary will show us their striking display of succulents, and that segues nicely into why I have these eggs here. You see, these were laid by some of the hens out at the Garden Home Retreat. Aren't they beautiful? We just gathered these this morning. The nests were full of eggs, and we've taken the yolks and whites out of them and used them in recipes. After all, we're getting pretty close to that time of year when food is front and center. Now, what's fun with these is that you can actually make containers for growing things. Look at these little egg people. It's a great activity for kids who are going to have a little time on their hands during the holidays. And they can be a lot of fun to put together and plant. A little later, we'll get to that in the show. I enjoy pausing to reflect on the natural beauty of the Garden Home Retreat. Sunsets out here are amazing. And just walking the grounds and listening to the sounds of wildlife and the wind through the trees puts me at ease. When my friend the Reverend Susan Sims Smith approached me about a project she was working on called the House of Prayer, I knew the feeling she was trying to achieve in the garden spaces surrounding this interfaith haven. A hallmark of this space is silence. We'll break that rule for now and let Susan lead us on a tour of the gardens and the areas designated for prayer and meditation.
And the mission statement of the House of Prayer is that it's designed to be an interfaith haven set apart in nature for prayer, contemplation, and meditation where all are welcome. Oftentimes you can't count on silence. And this is a place that people can go and count on silence and solitude. So the purpose of this building is a place that's sacred and it's set apart just for people to be quiet. They might say their prayers, they might do meditation, and also the architecture of the building people are really responding to. It's unusual on the outside, it's unusual on the inside. Architecturally, it's fascinating. It's that the form of the building follows the function of the building. So part of the idea of where to place the building was to nestle it away from the road, a little bit hidden from view, and then to protect it with some beautiful screening. There is a dome up above, and there's a round circle of earth. And in that meditation room, you see that paradox that we live on the earth, but we're connected to the divine. So that room mirrors not only a theological viewpoint, but mirrors nature. So someone comes and they park their car, and as they walk down this path, they begin to move into the woods. Then you move into the first walled garden. I call it the entry courtyard. You go from the entry garden into the first heated and cooled room that I call the pre-meditation space. And that's the room where you begin your preparation for even more quiet. And because the building is on the slope of a hill, that outside room is 16 feet off the ground. So when you look out the rock ledge, you're looking out in the woods from a perch. I love to look at the outside of it. I love to look at the inside. I'm thrilled. It is more beautiful than I thought it was going to be.
From the serenity of the House of Prayer to the calming beauty of San Francisco's Botanical Garden, and a little later, a delicious recipe. Golden Gate Park in San Francisco is actually larger than New York Central Park. This area has over 1 million trees planted in it. But what attracted our attention was the succulent garden. Gary Hoffman takes us on a tour.
There's certain themes here in the gardens. Some have to do with the country of origin. Some have to do with the type of plant, like for instance here in the succulent gardens. Obviously they're all succulents. A succulent is any plant that has evolved into retaining water for itself. Like for instance the aloes here, that is all full of water. Any plant that has evolved into holding water for itself for later use. Most of the plants in here are aloes, agaves, and puyas. Right here are the aloes. There's some yuccas there which are related to agave. In Mexico, they take the smaller fruits off the top and they'll make candies out of them. Also, you can actually, there's a lot of water stored in there, so if you're out in the desert or something, you can actually survive on these things. Other varieties of stuff that we have in here, Dickia, that's a type of bromeliad actually. This is called Mexican thorn. It's in the thorn family. And what's interesting about this tree is, the story goes, is the first one of these trees came up in 1850 somewhere, and it came up from Mexico with Mexican settlers heading north. And they planted this tree, I believe it was called Evergreen Lawn, Evergreen Park. It's a cemetery. And this tree has been here in the Arboretum longer than they've built the Arboretum. So this was planted before the 30s.
All of those succulents in San Francisco are just gorgeous. Of course, it takes a mild climate to be able to grow those out the way they do, but it doesn't keep me from having them. I think they're very inspiring. Just take a look at this one. This one's called a crassula. It's called Princess Pine, and I just love the texture of it. I think that's what's so interesting about succulents. And take a look at this echeveria. Gorgeous color, and look how sinuous the leaves are. If you want to grow succulents, whether it's these or a beautiful little aloe like this, you want to make sure that you don't overwater them. You want to use a potting mix that drains very well. You see, if you overwater them, they will rot immediately. In fact, that's the #1 killer of these beautiful succulents. You see, they really need excellent drainage. Okay, now let's talk about this kids project. This is so simple. This time of year, you use a lot of eggs, or at least I do, making all those pies and cakes and so forth. So why not take the eggshells and put them to use for a project for kids? I mean, the kids are around. This is a great thing for them to do with their parents or grandparents. I love putting little faces on the shells like this. You see, once the eggs have dried, then you can use them as containers. And all you have to do is take a good potting mix, put some potting mix in the eggshell, and then the children can plant them. I like to use just a little bit of grass seed in them, and what will happen in just a few days, the grass seed will sprout, and Mr. and Mrs. Egg here will have some really funky looking hair. So this is a project that can get kids stimulated and into gardening. And the other thing to keep in mind is a little later in the spring, when you start growing some of those bedding plants, like some of those great tomato varieties, you can take the seedlings once they've come up in the eggshell and just plant the eggshell and the seedling directly into the garden. The shell is biodegradable and a great source of calcium. Coming up, that great tasting recipe I promised you. And while we're on the subject of food, we'll talk about ways to keep your garden from becoming a buffet for deer and other pests. Stay with us. If you're like me, you love chartreuse, and the bright lime green foliage of this heuchera helps to enliven any darkened area in the garden. I also like to use it as a replacement for coleus. You see, without constant pruning, some of those coleus varieties can become a container thug and just take over the entire display. You'll find Dolce Key Lime Pie has better manners, staying as a compact mound of foliage while adding an electrifying accent without overwhelming its neighbors. The garden is not only a feast for the eyes, but when you grow as much lettuce, broccoli, and spinach as I do, it's also a feast for the body. One aspect of rural gardening that I've had to encounter is deer and other pests who are tempted to come into the garden and graze on the produce and flowers being grown in these raised beds. My main goal out here is to keep things organic. So my search for environmentally friendly controls to keep deer out led me to James Messina of Messina Wildlife Management. James, it looks like you've got the ribbon in place already.
Yeah, we just finished putting it in.
Oh, you did that in short order.
You know, that's the nice part about it. It really doesn't take a lot of time or effort.
Well, this run that, I mean, I can't even imagine how many yards long it is. How long did it take you to put that in?
You know, you're looking at maybe a half hour's worth of work. The hardest part is putting the stakes in. If you have tough soil, you may need to hammer them a little extra hard.
I'm already feeling better about my roses.
Well, we're here to help.
Now, it's a little hard for me to imagine that this ribbon is going to be a major deterrent to deer, given what I know about the whitetail.
Yes. Yeah. The important part is it's not the ribbon that's doing the work. The ribbon is more of the wick. It's the repellent that's really going to be doing the work to keep the deer at bay.
So how often do you apply the repellent to the wick, as you refer to it?
Sure. Whether it's the ribbon or the plant, it's every 30 days, regardless of weather.
Yeah.
That means even in, you know, if you have a heavy downpour or fog.
You can still wait 30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh man, that's amazing. So, I mean, not to give away any sort of home secrets,
Sure.
but I mean, what are the, I guess, the 11 herbs and spices, if you can talk about that,
Yeah,
that cause the deer to not like this?
The key to it is really a different kind of technology. I mean, traditionally, a lot of products have used foul odor so that the animals fear maybe a predator is in the area with a fresh kill. Mm-hmm. What we've done is use plant extracts that the animals don't ordinarily prefer, so that instead of worrying about fear, they're really going on their own instincts. It'd be like you and I walking into a kitchen and seeing a bowl of chocolate but smelling broccoli.
Yeah.
You know
Right.
it's just not right.
Yeah.
So with the deer, they smell mint and rosemary, which they tend to not prefer, and they leave the area completely alone because their nose is telling them, I don't like this.
So if I have a hedge of roses and I want to apply it to that, it's not going to do any damage to the foliage at all, or the blooms?
No spotting, no discoloration, and no burning.
Huh, very good. And what about the time of year? Is there a particular time of year it's most effective, or, I mean, what's your advice? I mean, you've been around.
Well, it's most effective all year. That's the good news.
Yeah.
The bad news is, unfortunately, instead of having seasonal times to protect against deer, the season is getting longer. But we always tell people, if you think you might get some damage, go out and spray before you get damaged.
Oh, this is terrific. I really appreciate you helping me try to get a handle on this.
Well, thanks for having us. It was great work. It was easy work. We're happy to do it.
Sharon Mosley is a neighbor of mine and also a master gardener. For years, she and her husband tried to force their garden to fit the typical norm. As you can see from these winter photos, the Mosleys weren't happy with the results. Sharon tells us how their garden transformed from this to this.
We really tried to focus on the Victorian colors. We had so many 100-year-old trees surrounding the property. Eventually we discovered this was going to be a shade garden, and we decided we would go with what we call a no-mow backyard. We would do ground cover, a lot of vinca and ivy that suppress the weeds. Then we started doing some raised beds, and little by little we kind of got this green space going. Then we decided we loved the water features with the sound, and we loved to entertain, and we really, you know, decided little by little things would just be green. A lot of our area in this Victorian neighborhood, as far as our gardens and our yards, they're actually dictated by our trees. You want something that, you know, promotes a feeling of something that you can come outside and enjoy.
Coming up, that great tasting recipe I promised you. Stay with us. You know, cupcakes can be an exciting treat for anyone, especially children. Chef Christy Milligan of Cupcakes on Kavanaugh shows how to get your kids involved in the kitchen by satisfying their sweet tooth.
Right now there's a huge trend in cupcakes across the United States. And who doesn't love cupcakes? Kids from 2 to 92 love cupcakes. And here at Cupcakes on Kavanaugh, we use fresh, natural, organic ingredients for all our cupcakes. Examples today we're going to show you are fresh lemon cupcakes and strawberry cupcakes. We use fresh lemons in our lemon drop cupcake, and this is so easy. You use a zester. You can pick a zester up at one of your local kitchen stores, and you just want to use the zest of one lemon. What's fun about this, kids can do it, adults can do it. You can use limes, lemons, oranges, whatever you crave. So you use the zest of one lemon, which looks about like this. You take your regular cupcake batter, whether it's from scratch or from a mix, whatever's easiest. You add your fresh lemon zest and the juice from one lemon, as you can see here is about 2 tablespoons. Stir it up, and voila, you have fresh lemon cupcakes using one lemon. And the same with strawberry. Our strawberry cupcakes, we use fresh cut strawberries. We add fresh strawberries to the batter, and there you go. Adding one ingredient to the batter, you have fresh cupcakes. Now here comes the fun part, the icing on the cupcake. All we have to do is an icing bag and some fresh ingredients. Say you take your strawberry cupcake, some icing, fresh strawberries, sprinkle right on the top, pat that down, take your icing bag, voila. How easy is that, and what kind of presentation is that? We'll just use that little strawberry. Perfect. Again, lemon drop cupcake. We used fresh lemon juice and lemon zest in the frosting. Piping bag gives a professional, clean look. Can you have too much icing? I don't think so. A little candy lemon wedge on top, and there you go. Fresh lemon cupcake, strawberry cupcake, straight out of the garden. Easy. Anybody can do this. From kids to adults, just have fun with it.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's show. I hope you've had as good a time as I had and am having in creating some of these fun little egg people. We've covered a lot in today's show. We saw how to keep deer out of your garden, and we also made a great visit to the Striving Arboretum. If you're ever out that way, it's very much worth a visit. And check out that recipe. You can find everything in today's show on my website, pallensmith.com. Until next time, from the garden, I'm Alan Smith.
In this garden I dream of a bed of flowers. Bluebirds sing of the beauty all around us. And every time the sun comes out, I can't help but smile. Oh, no, I can't help but smile.